Welcome to a fine gaming experience, everyone. Just ahead of us lies our final boss, the released Goddess Tyr. If you've watched the previous video, you'll see how we still managed to fail despite defeating her. We can't let that happen. It's time we unleashed our ultimate weapon against her. We want your head on a platter. Ooh, but we will take a wish. Alrighty. Now that we've got our free heal, time to get to the whoopin'. This phase of the goddess has a 10,000 hit point bar, but we'll move on after doing 7,500 damage to her. I could move on to the final phase right now by hitting her with Agni, but I want to show the next scene again. Remember to take a peek at Karn's damage if you want to see her darkness weakness being hit. You have, and we will. Oddly, we're forced to be her friend. If we say no, it loops back to our previous statement till we agree. A real "but thou must" moment. This time, we're going to listen to Sarah. And she's right. Agni's true purpose can only be realized when used against the goddess. Again, she's right. As we'll see, playing innocent is a bit of an understatement. Time to activate Agni. Karn cannot be transformed, or else it'll be grayed out. Everyone must also be alive, as well as without any status ailments. It's some odd requirements, but this is basically a lend me your power kind of ability. And it's the only other spell besides Rudra that gets a cutscene animation. No idea why, but I wasn't able to find any concept art for Agni out there. All it takes is a single blow in this form. I wonder if this world considers all the animal clans as human. Now that's more like Tyr, Goddess of Destruction. Looks like we've made her mad, but now we've forced her true self to emerge. Yes, this horrible monstrosity is what that innocent little girl really looks like. If you recall, I mentioned Jade's appearance was very Lovecraftian, and likely a side effect of the goddess's influence. As you can see, her true form is quite unlike anything else we've encountered so far, with quite a creature from the Dreamlands vibe. I have to admit, I quite like her design. The skirt of worm mouth drooling, rows of orbs that arch onto the back, and not only does she have a second jaw, the first one has a lovely centipede mandible on it. And it's quite detailed too. Someone put a lot of time into this sprite work. In some ways, this is what you'd expect from a final boss. The fake projection of the goddess we fought in the previous video had an eye-popping 300 strength stat, the highest of any enemy so far. Her true form blows that out of the water at a titanic 510 strength, which is also the exact same staggering number for her defense. If you decide to try and take on this form without casting Agni again, you will be punished for it. The first health bar has just under 2,000 hit points, but her second, almost 30,000. Even if you're using your ultimate dragon attack, it's going to take quite a bit to hack all that down. What's really disappointing is that just like her crying maiden form, our final boss really only has two methods of attack. The green orb spit and her odd tongue lash are both just a basic physical attack that only targets one member. It seems you can evade and counter them like a normal attack, though I have read that the tongue may have a higher critical rate. In the other video, I was mentioning the Goddess of Destruction should have some unique, powerful spell. While this form does have a unique spell with Big Crash, it's certainly not powerful at only 70 damage to the party. The Crying version had Blizzard, which did 100 to everyone, so this feels really underwhelming. Thanks to our Agni spell, we'll be taking down a god without much issue. She really could have used an instant death spell like Jade had. Big Crash could actually be intimidating if you gave it even a minor chance to KO. It would make those 2 rounds to get Agni back up really nail-biting. Instead, we have some of the most beautiful sprite work in the game, smacking us with damage comparable to a basic mage enemy. She is telling the truth, sadly. While we have banished her, it is temporary, and someday she'll have enough strength to return. That won't be for a long time, however. This victory is ours. Very true, Karn. Though 35 episodes is less than I expected this would be. With our celebrations over, we now tour the world on our Help to Rebuild roundup. How many times must Mogu prove that he learned that spin move? Blue, of course, goes back to sleep. Ox finally gets to meet his child. Gobi can again use his license freely. Karn returns to lead the Thieves Guild. We say our goodbyes to our giant friend. Bo returns to his clan to help rebuild his community. Nina returns to her father. And we come home as well, but never forgetting the memory of our sister. The real credits here do a monster mashup I quite like. Capcom being Capcom, the graphics were a high priority, so nice to revisit both enemies and different battlegrounds. Ted Woolsey was the director for the English translation, and he was responsible for not only editing a ton of early games into English, but ended up changing the whole system for how games were localized in North America. In a nutshell, he was asked to review how well Final Fantasy IV had been translated after it was released. Considering it was done in Japan by someone who knew some English, then cleaned up by a mishmash of people in North America, he was rightly appalled. He started to engineer a system for how games would be exported to North America, starting with Final Fantasy Mystic Quest of all things. George Sinfield as editor and writer might not be a name you recognize, but he's another icon. If you've ever read Nintendo Power, you've probably read something from him. Same with various strategy guides. He's got a handful of games he wrote for, but moved up to design and eventually produce a lot more. Keiji Inafune is yet another gaming icon, but one you might recognize. I could do an entire video on the games this guy has worked on, but the Mega Man and Street Fighter series are the most standout in the list. This was one of his earlier works, but during a time he was personally putting everything into his work to be noticed more. Some of the concept art I've added to the thread certainly has his flair to it. And thank you all for watching. It took me a few episodes to get my groove in this series, so I can't say how much I appreciate those who have watched the entire thing beginning to end. But we're not done yet. Check out the last video in this set for one of Breath of Fire's longest held secrets. And take care all.